my name is Derek. Today we're going to be going over this iPad Air 4 that's not charging. I just took the screen off and took a look at the charge port and it looks good. In fact, when I plug it into charge, it seems like it wants to, but I get no response on the display, and even after a long period of time on a charger, it doesn't charge. Let's see if we can figure out what the issue might be. So let's get into the video. All right, so the first thing that I'm going to do is let's take out the shield here. And what I want to do is perform a little bit of tests here. So we're going to put our multimeter in continuity mode. Got the battery isolated here with this piece of plastic. We'll put our red probe on ground. And I'm going to just start probing around and checking it against the schematic to see if we can find anything interesting. That's sides ground, 0.45. Now the issue with the iPad Air 4 is although there is a board view that's available, it doesn't really have any details on it besides just telling you what connects to what, but it doesn't tell you what the lines are or what the values should be read at using a program like ZXW or JC Drawing. Maybe there is a program out there that has it right now, but I'm not aware of one. Okay, so this side's ground is a 0, 0. And this is really close to a dead short. I mean, I would call that a short. Let's go take a look and see what... So this is the component that I tested. Now, it could be that there is an issue with a component that's on this line. Maybe there's an issue with NAND. But there are other things that are connected to this line. So let's see if we can isolate the issue. And in fact, now that I'm looking at it, there's like a weird dark spot right there on the PMIC. Let me zoom in on that. You see that spot? Looks like it almost got like overheated. Let's see if there's any correlation between this cap here and something in this area. All right, so let's take a look here. Okay, so this is the bottom corner of the NAND right here. And this is the component we were testing. Here was the ground. And then here is the line that appeared short. And it does have, there's a possibility that something's going on here with NAND. But looking over here, oh, look at that. Okay, so this is exactly where the gray spot is. So let's take a look. I flip this around. Going to be upside down. But look at that kind of charred area. It lines up perfectly, even though it's upside down now, with these 3 dots. Let's test real quick these components and see if we get a even closer short. Alright, so probably just gonna have to trust me on this one. So this side of this capacitor is ground, and we've got 0.0000. 0.01. So yeah, this is very interesting. What we can do to confirm the area of issue is inject some voltage over in maybe even just on that cap there and see where the heat comes from under thermal camera. I'm guessing that we're going to have a PMIC issue here just based off of what I'm seeing. So sometimes the visual artifacts give you kind of a good idea of what the repair needs to be. I think that's what we're going to have, but let's confirm it real quick. All right, let's take a look now that we've got this set up. I'm going to got my DC power supply connected up. We're going to go in and we're going to test the inside of this capacitor here. I'm going to look in this area again. It might have just been me, but it looked like the only place that heat was coming from was right here. So but it was like under the shield. So let's look at this again. All right. In 3, 2. Yeah, there's a teeny spike in heat over there. Let's see if I can make it a little bit more clear. 3, 2, 1. Yep. Okay. So the heat is definitely coming from this area. Let's see if we can figure out what is actually happening there. All right, so what we have under there, although this is backwards, this is upside down compared to the drawing over here, is we've got a bunch of capacitors here with this one coil. I'm wondering if, I still don't like the way that PMIC looks, but we're getting heat from under the shield, and it might just be that it's heated up this area because it's connected to the PMIC when we actually have a short here. Maybe it did kill the PMIC as well, but we're going to have to, let's just try to get under the shield here and see if we can figure it out. So there's a bunch of different ways to do this. You could kind of grind it off. What I like to do is just carefully take a blade and I'll score the metal and just kind of carve down into it, creating a nice deep groove, trying not to leave metal shards on the board, basically creating a weak point in the frame. And I'm just going to go ahead and do the same thing on this side. And then I'm going to come down here and we'll cut there and along the side here, just like that. I'm going to make those a bit deeper, and then we're going to just open this up like you would the old-fashioned way to open any tinfoil can. We're just going to shear the top off. Now I'm going to take just a pair of these snippers here, and we're going to try to cut into the frame, and we'll shear it away. Doesn't always go exactly where you want it to go. There we go. Now it's following my line that I made. I'm making a mess of the sticker here next to it, but that's no big problem. Now, you probably already spotted it, but something here doesn't look like the rest. Take a look at that cap there. It's cracked. Let's get a really close-up view on that. You can see it's cracked here, cracked there. It's discolored. It's not silver like its sides. It's got like this oxidation to it. Let's see if the short goes away when we remove it. For fun, let's take a look at it under thermal, just so we can see it light up like a Christmas tree. Boom, look at that. Super bright. Okay, let's pop it off. Now there's a couple ways to remove this. You could desolder it if you wanted to, but I like this method, which is to take the edge of the tweezers here, get down on the side of it, give it a nice big flick. Oh, and it just broke. Let's see if we can get a little lower. I was probably too high. Just like that. And we'll snap it off, revealing the pads below if I really wanted to put one back here. I'm not going to take the time to do that because the data is what's kind of important in this one. Alright, I'm just going to take a quick look with our multimeter here. Put our probe on ground, red probe on ground, ready to go in. And I want to test or remove the component. Here we get point. Alright, we get 5.4. Interesting. It's no longer short. Okay. So we go back over to the first component that we tested. We get 50. This might power on now. I'm still a little concerned about this area, but it'd be interesting to see what the iPad does right now at this point. It could be that it was just getting hot because that cap was bad. Alright. Let's go ahead and just put that back down for right now. We'll connect up the display and the digitizer. Okay, and now let's take a look. Actually, let's put back real quick the charge port, and it's 2 screws. Okay, we'll pull off the battery connector, plastic protector that we had, and let's screw this down. And let's plug it in and see if we get any life whatsoever. That would be a no. So it's definitely the PMIC as well, and that's a part that I have to order. What most likely happened was the capacitor there shorted out, and someone continued to try to put power to it for an extended period of time, causing that area to overheat, killing surrounding components like the PMIC that's on that line. All right, so I've gone ahead and done some more testing around the PMIC, and I'm getting a bunch of weird readings. Weird because they kind of feel off. Now, I don't have a good board to compare to or schematics that show the values that I'm supposed to be reading, but I'm getting a lot of weird numbers around it. So apart from it looking bad, being attached to the component that was bad, once I pull off the PMIC, I'll be able to kind of confirm if those values change. I've got the PMIC in today, so I'm going to show you how we replace it, and we're going to fix up this iPad so it can continue to be used. All right, so let's take the motherboard out so that we can work on it. All right, the first thing we're going to do is take out the screws on the charge port, on the battery, and the brackets up at the top, just like that. And we can disconnect all of the coax cables, and we'll peel them away. Then we'll make sure all of the flex cables are disconnected from the board. And now I'm going to add some isopropyl alcohol to the charge port flex and along the edge of the motherboard to help kind of loosen that adhesive so that it comes out. Along with up at the top on this flex cable, it goes over here and then up by the power button and camera. And I'm just going to carefully pry up the flex cable for the charge port, and we'll peel it up and we'll slowly slide under the board and start to give it a little bit of flex while adding more isopropyl alcohol. You can also put a heat plate on the back if you want to help with this, but I don't mind taking an extra 10 seconds to let it kind of do its thing with the alcohol without heat. And then the board will start to come up, and then when you get to the top, you just got to make sure you don't tear this flex off. And this area is kind of annoyingly adhered, so take your time. All right, the board just popped out. I'm going to slowly walk under this flex cable all the way over, add some alcohol up here, and then I'm going to take my tweezers and I'm going to carefully insert it under this tiny little surface and slowly lift and let the alcohol let the adhesive go. And eventually it'll pop away from that copper sticker and then the whole board will come out. Now let's go take a closer look under the microscope at how to replace the PMIC. All right, so we've got here the PMIC. As you can see, this is the area we worked on before where we found the shorted capacitor here, and then also this burn mark in the PMIC, which is why we're replacing it today. And one of the hard parts about this particular IC is there's not a whole lot of clearance between the edge of the chip and the capacitors, which means installing it is really easy because it's hard to get it misaligned. But removing it is a little bit more tricky just due to its proximity to the surrounding components, which means things can go terribly wrong very quickly when we get up to soldering temperatures if we start to move components. Got a little shield here that's going to shield the CPU. We're going to kind of get it semi-close to the edge here. This has a shield down here, so it's fairly well protected from direct heat. We're going to come in with our hot air and we're going to heat up the PMIC and we'll remove it. I'm going to add a little bit of flux. Alright, so it looks like I accidentally pushed off a little capacitor down here. And we'll pull off the IC. We'll address those in a second. I'm going to take some 138 solder paste and deposit it down. And I'm going to take an iron. I'm going to go around and we're going to mix this 138 with any of the factory solder. And we're going to be as thorough as we can to kind of go around without accidentally bridging any of the surrounding capacitors. I really want to mix in. Let's get some more flux on this. Really want to make it an easy job for me to wick up the all of the pads. So I'm just going to go around the border. That's really where a lot of the issues that can occur. And I'm going to drag that solder around, picking up the factory solder. We'll flip it around. We're going to do the same thing. In this case, it's like a one step backward, two step forward process where you're adding more solder and then taking away twice as much as you add. We'll do this all the way around. No need to rush. One last side that I want to deal with, this one, and then we'll be good to wick it off and install our new PMIC. Now we'll add some flux and get out our wick and carefully move up towards the edge. Alright, I'm satisfied with that corner, so we'll rotate again. A lot of this comes down to wanting to be in the most comfortable position for yourself to do the work. Alright, and so we'll go up into the corner, suck up all of the solder, move down the side, and I'm satisfied with that corner. So we'll rotate it again, go up into this corner, same thing, and then last corner, go up into that corner, and we'll suck up all of the solder. I'm going to add a little bit of low melt to the sides of the capacitor here that has come out of alignment. This will help it melt easier when I go to heat it up so that it wants to snap back into place. Alright, time to clean up. So we're going to add some isopropyl alcohol and I'm just going to clean up all of the flux and then we'll clean it off really nicely just like that. I'm going to go back and add some flux. We're going to heat it up and move it around, getting it nice and thin everywhere. Alright, so the chip that we pulled is the 343S00422. So here we've got our new chip. It's the 343S00422. Let's take a look at the chip and make sure we're happy with the solder balls. Now there are a few chips that I will reball. This isn't one of them because I like the temperature of the factory solder for this component, just because I know how much heat it's going to be taking. So looking at those solder balls, they look like they're in good shape. So what we'll do is add some flux to this as well. Keep that solder nice and shiny. Add a bit of flux to it. Might be a little too much, but we'll let the heat spread out. We'll let some of this get sucked up by the cloth. There we go. Now I'm happy with that little coating of flux on there. Alright, we'll take our chip, we'll set it down, and if you remember, the dot was where the burn mark was there, so it's easy to line up this one. You can see the dot here in this top corner. So we'll spin this guy around, drop him into place, nudge him until he's where we like him. Alright, and I like the placement there. The spacing on all sides looks really, really good. We got 3 tasks to do. 1, solder on this IC and move this cap and that cap back into place. We're going to try to do this all at the same time. Now I think the hardest one's going to be the little capacitor here. Alright, so I'm almost got it hot enough. There we go. Got those 2 capacitors back in. And I'm going to come here. You probably couldn't see that. Dang it. Got the capacitors back in. And we're going to come in on the side here. And we're going to see if we can nudge. We'll give it a little nudge like that. That way we know it's nice and sturdy. Let this board cool down. As you can see, we accomplished what we needed to. The caps are back in place. Nothing else has slid out of place. No bridging. We snapped the IC perfectly. So let's just let this cool down, and then we'll come in with some isopropyl alcohol now that it's a little cooler, and we'll clean up whatever flux we can. Not going to get all of it, obviously, and that's okay. And I'm extremely curious what I get for readings on the multimeter, because I was still getting some odd readings on surrounding areas. So here I'm getting 0.3. Okay, this was the line that was, let me get this back into focus. Alright, so here is the line that was shorted before. I'm now getting 0.3 on that. That's good. This line was showing some issues. So we got ground on this side, and now we got 0.3. This was also reading high. Alright, a lot of those lines I was having issues with before are now testing good. Let's go plug this in back into the iPad and let's see if we can get a different result. Alright, so we've got a new PMIC installed. Let's go ahead and put this back inside the frame. I'll take a piece of plastic. I'm going to protect the battery right there. Okay, we'll install the board by lining up the top. We'll line up where the battery goes. I'm gonna push the board down so it stops moving. And I'm gonna put the charge port back in. And we're gonna put in at least the bottom screws for now, just for testing so we can plug in a charger. And I'm gonna connect up a bunch of the stuff up top. All right, I've got everything but the coax cable and the speaker connected at the top, and same with the bottom. We've got the charge port installed, but not the other stuff. And now let's connect up the display, and we'll connect up the digitizers. And now that those are connected, we'll go ahead and pull out the battery protector and put back its screw. And now let's plug it in and hope for life. Oh, we saw a flicker, and there we go. We've got the battery logo. So the battery was really dead, but we do now have life. It is charging. If I unplug this, it says plug me in, only very quickly. So let's give this a chance to charge up, and we will test it and make sure everything's working. All right, so we're charging 1%. Touch works. All we need to see now is this go up above 1%, and we know that we are charging properly. One thing I also want to just double check, just because it was having charging issues. Let's flip this around and make sure we get our charging symbol back. And we do. All I need to do is see it go above 1% and we are done. We just need to put back all the brackets, connect everything up, and yeah. All right, so it's been a couple minutes and we are at 2%. That's about right for a dead iPad. I am happy with that. That means that this is in fact charging. There are no other issues with it. I'll spare you closing it up. And this iPad is basically done. And we'll go ahead and turn it off. All right, so now we have it all fixed. We are charging once again, and it's all back together. Luckily, this one was fairly straightforward. Being able to actually visually see an issue with the PMIC. Now, in testing around it, I was coming up with some very interesting readings. After replacing the PMIC, those readings came back to what I, from experience, find to be normal. I really wish that the schematics were available so that I could actually understand what values I was looking for instead of just saying, oh, that feels right now. Or that seems to be a little high, it seems to be a little off. If I had another logic board to compare to, it would have been much simpler. That being said, hopefully this video has helped you understand how straightforward or how tedious it can be to track down issues, whether it's a short on a capacitor or inside of an integrated circuit, and some of the techniques to replacing it as well. If there's anything that you'd like to see in a future video, let me know in the comments below. Thanks a ton for watching. We'll see you in the next video.